question on everyone's lips is, how much time off am I going to get when I work on a cruise ship? Well, unfortunately, there is no one-size-fits-all answer because it depends on what cruise line you work on, what job you do on board, sometimes what recruitment agency you get the job through. But there is a really good way of being able to gauge how much you're going to work, and that's what we're going to go through today. So first, we're going to talk about the limits that every cruise line have to abide by. And then we're going to dive into the Maritime Labour Convention, all about that. MLC for short, you may have heard of it if you've been researching cruise ships. But if you just want to know how much time off you're going to get, stick around for the next 2 minutes and I'm going to answer that question. And then if you want to understand why you can expect to get that time off and like why those limits exist, then stick around for the whole video. So the maximum working hours, this is what every cruise ship abides by, okay? It's called MLC. No crew member can work more than 14 hours in a 24-hour period, and no crew member can work more than 72 hours in a 7-day period. 72 hours is 6 12-hour shifts. The minimum rest hours that a crew member can have, it must be 10 hours in a 24-hour period, and they must have a total of 77 hours rest in a 7-day period. So typically crew members will work a 14-hour shift, but during that 14-hour shift, most crew members will have 2 one-hour breaks, a lunch break and a dinner break. That means that you have technically worked a 12-hour shift. As I said earlier, if you have 6 12-hour shifts, that is 72 hours. This means that you have to have at least 1 day off a week. However, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you will know that getting a full day off on a cruise ship is extremely rare, like pretty much unheard of. So what's going on? This 12-hour rest period, day off that you need to have in a week, it can actually be split up. So your manager can give you 2 6-hour periods off, which basically means you could have 2 mornings off a week. So when I worked for Steiner, this is what happened. I would have 2 mornings off a week, and I would start work at 2:30 in the afternoon and then work until the evening. Or your manager could even decide to give you 3 4-hour slots off. So you could have 3 mornings off, but obviously they would just be shorter mornings. So even though the schedule can be demanding, this ensures that crew members have the required amount of rest to basically be able to maintain their well-being and performance. Now, you might be fortunate and land a job on a cruise ship that doesn't require you to work 72 hours a week. For example, let's take working in the shops on board. So because the shops can only be open when the ship is out at sea, when I worked in the shops, would typically just work in the evening. So I would usually work from 5 p.m. till 11 p.m, which is 6 hours. But then during a week's cruise, there would typically be 2 sea days, which means that you work all day because obviously the ship's at sea all day. So I would work a 14-hour shift, but I would have my 2 one-hour breaks. So that meant that I would work 2 12-hour shifts, totaling 24 hours. So if I did 5 6-hour shifts and then 2 12-hour shifts, I would typically work between 54 and 60 hours per week when I worked in the shops on Virgin Voyages. So just hold on a minute, like, do you see what I mean when I'm like, cruise ships is no joke? Because as you've heard me say many times, like, I barely worked working in the shops, but I was still working like a 60-hour week, 54-hour week. So just know it's the best thing you'll ever do, but like me, I considered myself to be barely working, and I was working 54 hours a week as a minimum. So, you know, just bear that in mind. But obviously the benefit of working in the shops is you feel like, you have the majority of the day off, so you really feel like you've got time to live a little. You know, you can have a lie-in, you can recover, you can do your laundry, you can go out and explore the ports. So working in the shops and working like 54 to 60 hours a week, you feel as though you're not just at work constantly, which is huge. All right, so that is the best answer that I can give you to how much time off will I get when I have a job on board a cruise ship without knowing what cruise line you're going to work on, what job you're going to do. But now I want to dive into MLC, which stands for the Maritime Labour Convention. And this is the organisation that has set out these rules that we have just gone through. Now, I would stick around and watch this, especially if you're going to work on a ship, because this is something that you will need to know. And it's about your time off. You want to know this. So the Maritime Labour Convention, MLC, was developed by the International Labour Organization, ILO, which is part of the United Nations. So the ILO is responsible for creating global labour standards, basically ensuring fair work conditions for everyone. So MLC was adopted by the ILO in 2006 and went into operation in 2013 when enough countries had adopted it. Right, so I'm just going to use this diagram to show you how MLC fits into the larger picture of maritime law. So here you've got SOLAS, MARPOL, STCW and MLC. So these logos represent the main laws governing the maritime industry. So SOLAS covers ship safety, MARPOL is for pollution prevention, STCW is for seafarer training, so many of you will know, you know, before you go on a ship, you have to get your STCW certificate. And then our focus today is obviously the MLC, which covers like fair working standards for all crew members. So these laws have different governing bodies, but they basically work together to ensure safety, welfare and security of everyone who works at sea. So we spoke about time off, which is, you know, something that obviously comes under MLC, but some other things that are covered by MLC is minimum working age. So basically no one can be hired under the age of 18. Under MLC you must have an employee agreement. So this basically ensures that every crew member has signed a contract and knows what their rights are. Working hours, which we've obviously been through, so there's, you know, a minimum amount of rest that you need to have and a maximum amount of working hours that you need to have. So can you imagine, like, before MLC, they could just make you work whenever. It was basically up to your manager. And I've spoke to like people who have worked on ships for like 50 years, because as we've gone through in other videos, you know, people who work on cruise ships, they range from 18 to 70. So I've spoken to some people who have been, you know, doing it for a long time, and when they tell me what it used to be like before these rules were in effect, I'm like, holy sugar, like that is I am glad I wasn't working on a ship then. So we like MLC. MLC is our friend. Okay, so it also covers accommodation. So basically make sure that you have somewhere nice to stay and you're not all just, you know, there's not 50 people crammed in a cabin. Health and safety, repatriation, social security, wages, you know, wages are obviously set at a minimum. Leave, you have to have a certain amount of months off in between contracts, and I think the maximum is 9 or 10. I don't actually know. I think it might be 10. Like, no one is allowed to work more than 10 months. Obviously, every recruitment agency, every cruise line has slightly different rules, but under MLC, I believe that the maximum someone can be away at sea for is 10 months, which is way too long if you ask me. Training, so you need to have the right qualifications to make sure that you are safe while you are working out at sea, and you also get healthcare when you are at sea. So basically ensures that, you know, you have access to healthcare. So obviously every ship you go on will have a medical facility. So I think that is everything I wanted to cover. We've gone through how much time off you can expect to get. Obviously that varies on what job you do and what cruise line you work for. We've gone through MLC and why those rules are in effect. But yeah, I really hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions about this, you know what to do. Leave it in the comments and I will try and answer it for you. Or you can message me over at, over on Instagram at Cruising as Crew. But I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day. And as always, guys, I will see you in the next video. Bye!